Okay, so we're back with another book review. This week we are talking about Lore of the Wilds by Analeigh Sbrana. And again, another one that I really enjoyed. So I had a lot of fun reading this book too. This is essentially a YA fantasy. In this one, a human girl who they live in like this human community that is like surrounded by magical trees. They can't leave. You get the point. She's basically voluntold that she needs to go to the royal palace and she needs to retrieve magical books out of this magical library that only her human self can enter. That is where we start. Essentially, obviously, that doesn't last very long. She finds said magical books, does not turn them over as one would expect, and basically runs off with it and is on the run with the book. And this was fun. I will say with this one that this is the author's first work, and I think it's quite good for like being someone's first published novel. However, this has happened to me with a few books lately, but the first and the last parts are so good, and the middle is just a little bit, it's just not quite hitting. It's not booking, you know? Like this book is booking in the first and last parts, but in the middle somewhere something gets lost and you're kind of wondering like what. It's just so, in this book in particular, it's so all over the place that it makes you wonder what the point is and how this actually contributes to the plot. So that was a little bit hard. I got to the middle and it was a little bit hard to keep going. However, I will say the end did make up for it. The first part super like sucked me in right away. I was like, this is great. I'm really enjoying this. The last part, I was just blown away, floored, shocked by the plot twist. I'm sure other people could see it coming. There are hints, so it's not like it came out of nowhere. When you look back, it's like, okay, that is definitely makes sense why that's like that. But yeah, I was floored. I did not see that coming and I really enjoyed that. So I love being surprised just as much as I like being right. So in this novel, we essentially follow Lore. She's a human girl. She's the one that goes to the library. I will say again, in this book, I love the character names. Really enjoyed that. And yeah, she is the human and she's the one that comes into contact with the magical book, and she's the one with the ability to use said magical book. And she is Lore from and as in Lore of the Wilds. But anyway, I love her name. Like, what a cool name. Like, that is something that I think would be beautiful as like real life baby name. In general, I did really like her character. Some of the decisions she made were a little bit reckless, but definitely like out of love, and they were somewhat thought out and not like reckless to the point of like, wow, you accomplished nothing and everyone's dead kind of thing, or this could have gone so much better. It was like, it was a good thing that she did the things that she did. However, there were moments where she's like just a little bit reckless, which isn't my favorite all the time, but I did like that. Obviously, if you've been watching my reviews, you can see a theme. I really like strong, confident, smart female main characters. If they're not, that's not always like the most important thing to me. It's just something that I do really like when an author writes that. So typically, if that's the case in the book, it is something that I'm more than likely, if the story is half decent, I'm probably gonna recommend it because I love the main character. And so the other thing I wanted to mention is kind of like with The Tempest of Tea, I noticed that people were comparing it to Six of Crows. With Lore of the Wilds, I've noticed that people are comparing it to ACOTAR, and specifically the first book in ACOTAR, which is probably rated the worst out of all of the A Court of Thorns and Roses books by Sarah J. Maas. This book, to me, does not, like, they're not the same. I think at the beginning of the book, I was thinking like, oh, this does kind of remind me of a Beauty and a Beauty and the Beast retelling, because she's kind of locked up in a palace in a library. So it does kind of remind me of that in the beginning, but honestly, like these books are not similar. Like, I can see how people would think that they are, but they're not, and I don't think that's a fair comparison either. This book is definitely unique of its own world, and the characters and the way the like fae and magical, like any other beings, are described, not just like humans and fae, but the other beings that are described in this world, they're just different. Like, it's not just fae. So I do think that's interesting too, and I hope we get to see more, because this isn't just a standalone, this will become a series. I am very excited to read the next book in the series. Again, I've put myself in a position though where the next book probably won't be out for like a year. And so yeah, if you are someone who wants to read, kind of like maybe binge read everything all at once and you don't want to wait, maybe don't read it yet. However, I would recommend reading it. I really did enjoy it. The end definitely saved it for me. I really like that. I like that it didn't come out of nowhere in the sense that, how is that possible? Like, it does make sense. So I did like that. I think there's like, you're in a magical world of fae. It's easy to see how books can compare to each other and make them seem like they're similar, but as this book is on its own without comparing it to other books, I thought it was a really fun read and I really enjoyed it. The middle just lacked a little something as far as like, it felt like we were a little bit all over the place and it could have just been a little more focused and could have had more of a goal happening. And the reason I say this is not because like I'm reading and it's like wasted. It's not like what's happening is uninteresting. That's what's weird, is it's kind of like there's kind of a lack of urgency, I will say that, and there's a clear pointing out of a lot of time passing, and that just doesn't make sense. Like, if what is happening to her human lens is happening, there should be more urgency and not as much time should be passing, you would think. But I mean, it sets up the next book nice, I guess. However, what the middle reminds me of is, honestly, if you have read House of Flame and Shadow, it reminds me of Ethan Holstrom going on all these side quests that do nothing for the plot. That is what the middle of this book reminds me of. However, it's lore instead of Ethan. So I think that's why I didn't like it, because what the middle of this book is, it reminded me of that in a book that I had recently read. So there is that. If you have read that, you will fully understand what I mean. A couple other things to keep in mind with this book is it does sometimes get a little bit repetitive, and some of the dialogue is like laughably awkward. Like, you know you would never talk like this. It doesn't matter if you're fae or human. Like, I think I have some stuff highlighted that I'll show you. This is not specific to this book, but something that I really wish is there was more like girls or girlfriends instead of just like guy friends who are not like, they ultimately become like love interests, or I just feel like a lot of times in romantasy, the girl always has a guy best friend or no friends. It'd be nice if she had, some girlfriends, that's all. It's nothing against this book. I've noticed it in many books, and honestly, it seems like she does make a friend in this book who's a girl, so that's great. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure this isn't a spoiler because it's pretty far back in the book. Okay, I don't want to spoil anything. There's this part where she's fighting like some guy, and she essentially starts yelling, "Leave us alone," and it's just like, what? I don't know. The whole time I was just thinking like, you're killing this man and you're yelling, "Leave us alone." That's weird. I don't know. Just some of the dialogue was a little bit weird. That's all. Like I said, just a little bit all over the place in the middle, but those were the only things that I noticed that like kind of put me off. I really loved Floor. I just combined two characters' names. I really loved Lore and Findrel or Finn. I really liked Isla. I don't know how I'm assuming it's Isla. It's Finn's sister. I really liked her too. There's also some like underlying insta love, and I would say this is what would be comparable to the first book in ACOTAR, is the underlying like insta love, but I feel like this is happening because you're again in a situation where you're in a place where everyone hates you. Of course you're gonna fall in love with the first person that like is kind and wants to take care of you and keep you protected and safe. It does make sense why that would happen. It's just, again, I'm someone who doesn't enjoy insta love. However, this wasn't like a huge aspect of this book, so it's not like the worst thing ever. I thought like, honestly, the magic itself is unique. I would like to see it go like more in depth as we keep like reading the books and as the books come out, but the magic was unique. I really liked some of the characters, and honestly, the shock at the end set up this book really well for the next book. So yeah, I am pretty excited to read the next book. I didn't rate this as high as A Tempest of Tea, I think, just because there are just some parts that weren't the best I've ever read, but it was still really, really good. I really enjoyed this book. I think it's worth picking up and reading, and it's just a lot of fun to read. And that's one of my favorite things when I'm looking for something to read, is that it is fun to read. Ultimately, I'm excited to see where this series goes, and I will continue to read it. If you've read it, let me know what you thought. If you felt the same way about any of the things I mentioned or not. I love discussing these things with you guys, and if it's one that you intend to pick up, I hope you really enjoy it, and I'll talk to you soon.